All right, so now I'm ready to begin the second phase of the workshop session by writing my final end comment. Now, by reading the instructions, I know that not only am I answering these 8 questions, I'm also going to be writing this overall comment that focuses on a few priority suggestions. So that's how I'm going to begin my discussion, and then I'll move into the questions. So of course I'm going to take out my own sheet of paper. And this is rather informal, so I'm just going to go ahead and begin typing as long as I have all of my materials, the draft itself with comments, the workshop instructions, and the grading criteria in front of me. Okay, so here's where you would use the person's name. I think that your blog is a great start to some real analysis of the Dove ad, but there are a couple of things I think you could still do to better address the assignment. The biggest thing that I saw was the lack of an overall evaluative thesis along with individual supporting analysis points. There were a couple of places where you began to analyze the ad, but this could be pushed further to a discussion of rhetorical strategies and reorganized to better meet the needs of your readers. Your blog looks pretty good, but it needs a separate title for the post, more links, and tags so that people can find the blog when searching. Okay, so these are my priority revision suggestions. This is something that I got just from stepping away from the draft after I read it, thinking about what were the biggest things that I commented on in text here. And to me, that was the lack of a thesis and the lack of an organizational framework to kind of push some of the analysis further in depth. So let's look at our first prompt. Does the writer accurately summarize the main ideas of each text? Does the writer cite each text properly and frame quotes and paraphrase with effective criticism? I'm going to look back because I really wasn't paying too much attention to that when I first reviewed. So let me see. Dove's Real Beauty campaign, there's a description of the ad here. Let's look at the introduction of the article. There's no mention of the author here, and this isn't a totally accurate representation of that article. So those are all things I would want to comment on in this question about accuracy. So 1, your introduction of the blog is okay, although somewhat limited. The link for the blog works, so that should be enough to help your reader find the source. The article, on the other hand, needs to be introduced more precisely. Specifically, include the author's name. Your summary of the blog was descriptive and accurate, but I'm not sure you're representing the Helmick. Read the article again to provide more precise paraphrase of the author's thesis. Okay, so you can see here I'm writing in complete sentences, I'm focusing on strengths and weaknesses, and I'm also giving the writer real suggestions for how they can improve their draft. Okay, let's look at the second question. Does the blog offer a thesis at the beginning that frames the discussion, presents an overall evaluation, and outline the main reasons to support that evaluation? No, this does not. So you still need to provide a thesis that evaluates the article and maps out your main analysis points. Something like, and for this suggestion, I'm going to look back to the writer's draft at the end, because that's where I did see her starting to get toward a thesis. They made a good point ethically and have your emotions tugging, but have not gotten me to believe they are truly a campaign. So here I can't really tell if she thinks it's overall successful. These two reasons seem to suggest that she does think it's successful, but here she says it's not, but she doesn't provide a reason why. So something like, this campaign is successful in achieving its purpose because of the use of ethos and pathos. Or if you don't think that it is successful, say so along with your reasons why. Okay, then organize each analysis point into separate body paragraphs in order. And in this case, it would be ethos and pathos. All right, let's see what our third question is. Does the blog analyze the ad in terms of the points outlined in individual paragraphs in order? We've already established that it does not. Is there anything left out? Okay. If you mention ethos and pathos in a thesis at the beginning, it will help you organize the body of the essay. So remember when I was commenting in text and I said that there was some mention of an ethical point here in the middle of the summary that could be developed in a later paragraph, and then down here I thought there were several points blended into this long body paragraph, with one point about the stereotypical Caucasian and Asian girls, one point about donating money, and then another point about going back to the original stereotypical girls in the ad. So this is what I'm talking about here in question 3. Put the points you want to make about ethics in one body paragraph. Perhaps this would be your point about them asking for money, and your point about pathos in another paragraph. Here we can start to see, though, that the bigger problem is that what she says at the end about good emotions and good ethics doesn't really match up with what she says in the body of the essay. Here she's saying they're not ethical because they only include stereotypically pretty girls and they ask for money. Okay? She does say here that they did a good job reaching the target audience. So in general, the points in the thesis need to match up with what you actually say in the body. Does the ad do a good job ethically or not? Does the ad tap into the reader's emotions or not? Discuss each type of appeal, ethos and pathos, in separate paragraphs and mention both in the overall thesis. That's really going to help this writer frame the discussion, organize the discussion, and develop the discussion. So let's go on to question 4. Has the writer supported all points with examples from the campaign, used quote and paraphrase, and author tags? This is another place that I see us having issues. I think there could be more discussion of the visual strategies used in the ad to support your analysis. Okay? So where the overall claim is something about success, the individual points have to do with rhetorical strategies. The evidence or the support is going to come from visual strategies. So you might say something about how camera angle or orientation contribute to the pathological appeal, making the ad overall successful, or how the use of written text at the end affects the ethos as they're asking for money, hurting the overall persuasive effectiveness. Use the visual elements in the ad to support your analysis to support the overall evaluation. Question 5. Does the writer analyze the advertisement in terms of visual strategies and rhetorical effects? I've talked about this a lot. So as mentioned, there should be more discussion of things like color, sound, camera angle, etc., and these should be tied directly to rhetorical effects like logos and pathos. Sum it all up in a thesis and you can put each analysis point, which is going to deal with rhetoric, into a separate. So you can see here I'm starting to repeat myself a lot. Separate paragraphs, separate paragraphs, separate paragraphs. But hopefully if the writer keeps seeing how this is affecting every different element in the essay, it'll become clear how important that kind of an organizational strategy is. Number 6, the supplementary text. There was a lot of issues here. The supplementary text is mostly discussed on its own rather than connected to the ad. Instead, just pull quote, I'll say support in the form of quote and paraphrase from the article to back up your analysis of the ad. If the girls in the ad are just stereotypically pretty girls, how does the article support that? Work it into one of the analysis paragraphs. Okay, questions 7 and 8. Language and tone and convention. So I'm just going to comment on these quickly. Your language feels natural and of an appropriate level of formality. However, the analysis still needs to go more in depth as mentioned. And then for 8, we already talked about the fact that the blog looks okay, but needs a separate post title, more links, particularly to the USA Today article, and tags or labels so that searchers can find the blog online. Without those, this writer will not be fulfilling the requirements of that part of the grading criteria. So let's go back. Have we talked about analysis? Yes, we mentioned all the rhetorical strategies. We talked a lot about organization. I just mentioned how to follow the genre conventions more effectively. We did talk about accuracy at the beginning, and I'm unable to comment on the response portion because it hasn't been completed yet. So now we have complete end comment for this writer, I'm going to sign my name with all the revision strategies that this writer can employ in order to improve their draft. I would provide the writer with this letter as well as the in-text comments, and now I have completed